So we participated in...
Let's turn around.
Okay. We participated in Fair Trade, I don't know what that is. Fair Trade Fortnight in May, and we went through then kind of like what Fair Trade is and how you can get involved a little bit too. So when I was talking with Aileen and she was saying, well, what would you like? I was thinking that, well, maybe, you know, seeing as how we, in theory, know what Fair Trade is, maybe actually some of the stories about how Fair Trade actually changes lives would be really great. Anyway, so Aileen said that she would be more than willing to come and tell us a little bit, like a recap of what Fair Trade is and how 10,000 Villages started and all the different opportunities, but also how Fair Trade can change not just one person's life, but a whole community. So, come up. And Audie, do you know how to?
Sure, please just move that stuff out of the way. Just push it again, that's it. You're great.
The remote.
No, just grab it. Once it's set up.
Already said so. Quite fun with something. So
Yep.
the other one.
It's all good.
Your book is right there.
Did you press one? Oh, just in case it does that again. Okay. All right.
That's good.
Good morning.
Hi.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's lovely to be here. My name is Aileen Smiley, and I've been working with Village, or 10,000 Villages, for the last 15 years. Mostly, I've sort of worn a lot of hats, being a volunteer there, been on the board of directors, assistant manager, volunteer coordinator, and now I manage the group. There's about 60 volunteers, and over the course of the years, I've probably worked with about 300 from our local community who've been involved in the project. So today, I just want to talk a little bit first to connect the reading from Samuel and into how fair trade, how it connects into fair trade. So when David realized that to satisfy his own thirst, he had put someone else's life at risk, he did not allow himself the water. So some interesting questions arise from this reading. Would we have drunk the water? Would we, as Christians, have drunk the water? If someone put their life in danger to provide us with something that we asked for, would we accept it? Certainly if we wanted something and we knew that it had placed someone's life at risk, wouldn't we say no? So many thoughts over the years, because we talk about this passage a lot, have been shared in response. Some of us immediately try to justify drinking the water. So one could say that the deed was already done, so why not drink the water? Well, water is crucial to David's survival, and he was the most important, and he was more of a need, so why not drink the water? And it was more of a need than a want. So some responded, well, it's complicated, or it depends. So we have to ask, is Christianity complicated? So moving through that, I'll start at the beginning of how 10,000 Villages first became. And it started in 1946. It was actually the very first group that started fair trade, and they were artisans. And it started with one woman, Edna Ruth Byler. She was a Mennonite woman. She went to Puerto Rico and worked with this group of women who were doing needlepoint. Her husband was working in relief work there, and someone had asked her to go and speak to this group of women who were selling their needlepoint and said, is there anything that we can do for these women? They were living outside of the main city. They had nowhere to sell their goods, and they were willing to sell them for nothing. And she said, no, don't say that. She says, those beautiful works. I want you to value your work. She says, I know I can sell them in North America. So what they were asking for is what they need to eat next week. And she said, no, no. She says, look and see, how long did that take you to make? How much did your raw materials cost? Look at your economic conditions. Then you figure out a price, and that's the price you should get. Then it'll be up to me to do my part on that in North America. So it started as simple as that. She started selling things from loading up the trunk of her car. Then it sort of took over the bottom of her basement. And then it started to take over the church halls. So by the time we get to the 1960s, down, up, down, there we go. The Mennonite Central Committee, which is the umbrella branch of the Mennonites, they took over from Edna Ruth Weiler and started to create these shops. The theory being they're in all these different countries anywhere doing relief work, just as many of our churches are. They know where the needs are the most because they wanted to work with those that are the most marginalized, and then expand on theoretically what Edna had done with these small women's groups and go into all these places where they were already. And that's logistically how it started. It was very much a sort of thrift shop and craft shop. It wasn't as, if you're coming to the store, you'll see it's a little more high-end now because we've realized that we have to compete in the marketplace. And we're doing our best to try and do that, but in the very beginning, that's what it was. It was what churches knew was the thrift shop and selling crafts. So, about 1996, when we arrived on the scene, they changed their name, and it wasn't called 10,000 Villages in the beginning, it was called Self-Help Crafts. But there came along with that a lot of self-help groups that started to water down what exactly self-help crafts meant. So they changed their name to 10,000 Villages. And along the way, they met with a lot of other different groups who were working in the same theories, with the same practices, and got together to create the World Fair Trade Organization, to set up some guidelines as to what it meant to be in fair trade. Because fair trade is really not just about paying someone fairly for their work. There's a lot of different things that go into it. Whoops. Go back. There we go. So this is our logo, and you'll see that it's one line. It's one continuous line, and it connects all the villages. And it's villages from here in North America to all the villages across the world. Thusly, the 10,000 villages. And the name, here, there we go. The inspiration for our name came from Mahatma Gandhi, quote, "India is not to be found in its few cities, but in the 700,000 villages. We hardly ever paused to inquire if these folks get sufficient to eat and clothe themselves with." A really quick intro that I do sometimes when I'm trying to help people understand what fair trade is about is to look at clothing. And I do this with a lot of the high school groups. But for everybody it applies. When we go out and we shop for our clothes, what are things that we look for? So we look for style and color and logos and fabrics and textures and price. And these are all things that are important when we're making our choice about what we're going to buy, what money we're parting with. So the difference in fair trade is the first thing that we ask is who made it, and did they work in good working conditions? The rest of the stuff will follow, but that's the most important, is who made it. And were they well paid, properly paid, and did they work in good working conditions? So there's 10 reasons for fair trade. First time fly. Okay. Fair trade is trade that people can count on. So it means that when we make contracts with people, we want to be there this month and we want to be there the month after that. Similar to the way it works here, we're going to work every day hoping that whoever has got contracts with our business is honoring their contracts. Because if not, then we don't have a job. Well, similarly, we apply the same principles, but in fair trade. The empowerment of women, very, very important in fair trade. It's what we found over the course of the years. First of all, the sad part about the reason that we work with as many women as we work with, and probably about 80% of our cooperatives that we work with are women, is that they are the most marginalized. But if you give women money, they will invest it back into their community. They will invest it back into their school systems and back into their children to make it a stronger and healthier community. The more women have jobs, the more they have a voice within their communities. Protecting the environment, very important. Many people come into the store and say, well, I like buying from you because you're eco. Well, it's true, we're eco, and it's good for you, but the reason that we're eco is because it's good for the artisan. It's good for the environment that the artisan is working in, and thusly, the offshoot and bonus to it all is it's good for us. Fair pay and safe working conditions. Connecting with other cultures. It's an incredible peace-building way to connect with other cultures and have respect and understand the diversity of what's out there and who's out there. So a lot of times when we're choosing what we purchase, we try to choose ones and products that reflect people's culture. And sustainable local economies. This is incredibly important because we really do want people to be able to stay within their hometowns. We don't, if their hometowns they have trade and they're able to support the towns and get a teacher, bringing the teacher into the town so that the children don't have to travel many, many miles, and they're able to keep the village whole and sustainable. Instead of migrating into cities, which a lot of them are farmers, they don't have the skill sets, and they end up either in the slum areas, refugee camps, and in sweatshops. So it's very, very important that if you keep a village alive and vibrant, it goes hand in hand with a healthy economy for them. Capacity building. So capacity building is something where, for example, in our coffee farmers, part of what they learn is how to do tiered farming, so that they grow more than just coffee there. They grow fruits and vegetables, they can feed themselves, they can take it to the market, they can sell it at the marketplace. And one of the offshoots of that is with all these fruits, they bought the fruits and they created another group called Fruendes. And it's a dry fruit operation that works out of Bogota, Colombia. And they've been able to move 6 different families out of the slum areas, which I'm telling you are very, very dangerous. Like dangerous to the point where children during the day are locked into their houses because it's too dangerous to be outside. But they were able to move 6 families out of that to create this new cooperative called Fruendes. They all have, all of these families now have jobs. The kids go to school, and that's called capacity building. It's where one creates another. Community development. I put this picture here because this is a picture of children through our rug program. We buy fair trade rugs from a group in Pakistan. And part of the offshoots of that program, apart from paying people fairly and allowing their farming families that work within their own homes, and it gives them an extended source of income throughout the year. But part of being that cooperative is there's money that's invested in schools in the community. There's 10 different schools that are supported through the Fair Trade Rug program. and the community development. These are some of the children that are able to go to school. Schooling is so important. Even to the extent of getting the elementary level education in the schooling with children, they learn gender equity because they're going to school together, boys and girls. They learn about healthcare issues. There's a level of ignorance that doesn't happen when the school system is in place, especially in the elementary levels. Extended would be great. So AIDS awareness, all of these things. There. High quality goods. Again, I'm going to use our rug program as a great example. If you go in and you buy a rug, and the person that made the rug has gone and taken a lot of time to buy high quality goods, high quality wool, high quality dye. They've taken a long time to do the knots per square inch to make a really high quality product. They've taken it to the market, and then when they get to the market, they're bargain down and bargain down and bargain down until they get almost nothing for their rug. The next time they come to buy a rug, to make a rug, they are not going to use high quality wool or high quality dye or put the number of knots per square inch in it, because they know they're not going to be paid equitably at the end. In fair trade, when they belong to an organization and a group that is paying them equitably, everything falls into place. You do end up with higher quality products because someone has been paid properly for their work. Not just in rugs, but any product in the store. People have said to us over the years, your products are really, there's a lot of quality to them. That's because we're paying people properly. They don't have to worry about somebody bargaining with them at the end to see whether they're going to get the right amount of money. They're getting the right amount of money. Therefore, they're happy to make a quality product. So giving you a choice and a voice as a consumer, there's a lot of things we feel that we believe in. And when fair trade is out there, it gives us a choice, and it gives our voice a chance to be heard. So 10,000 Villages in Pointe-Claire was started in '96 by 3 churches on the West Island, and it was 3 ministers that were kind of trying to look to do a church on Main Street. That was sort of their idea. Weren't quite sure how to go about it, but they came across 10,000 Villages and thought, wow, this is great. This involves local community and connecting them to global community. It gives people a chance to be very proactive on their beliefs, and mixes church people with those who are very passionate about human rights, as our church people. So they went to their congregations, and this is a little known fact, but they went to their congregations and asked for the support. But I mean, it's a lot to ask for the support to go out and go into retail when the church had no understanding of retail, when there's a lot of ways that the money can go in the churches. So the initial reaction was not too great. So they decided to continue on their own anyway, but by the time the year finished, because it takes a long time to get all your ducks in a row, all the churches were on board, and all the volunteers, all the people from the community were in there painting and getting us ready. We actually opened a Beaconsfield Shopping Center, and it was great for about 3 months, and then January hit, and it was like, oh my gosh, this happens in January? Like, retail just... So we realized we had to do something, and an opening came up in Pointe-Claire Village. So again, everybody loaded their cars with all the products. We repainted everything. And in the beginning, our units that things stood on were things out of people's basements. We eventually had to give them back to them, but some of them didn't get them back for about 6 years. However, we did get there. We had support financially for the first 3 years from the Siemens Canada and Mission and Service Fund, some local sponsors, but the business plan was after 3 years that we would be self-sufficient, so we have been. We certainly get the support from the church communities in as much as helping get the word out about fair trade, but financially that was finished after 3 years. We still had to dig ourselves out of debt. It took us about 6 years to do that. And then once that was done, then you could see the difference in the store. People could start to see a change in the number of products that we had in the store. Well, that's because we had more money to buy them. Because everything is a non-profit organization, and any money that you make goes right back into buying more products. Because the more products you have, the more jobs you create. So I'm running out of time to talk about my homily. I got a chance a few years ago to go to Vietnam and Laos, and I got a chance to visit with people that we work with. And the products that you see over there are some of the products that I was able to meet with the people that made them. So I'm going to tell you a story about this woman that I met there. Her name's Pomale Chontabon. Vientiane is the capital of Laos. She lived up, when she was a child, up in Jingquan. During the Vietnam War, there was a lot of bombing there because there was a lot of bombing there. And her family had to hide in the jungles and the mountains. Eventually, she left all by herself. She was 10, and she ran, and her mission was to get to Vientiane, where it was a little safer in that side. It took her 250 kilometers, and she walked. She ran into many obstacles along the way, but she got there, became a nurse over time, and when the war finished, all the doors closed in Laos and Vietnam for trade. So the people there had very limited supplies traders to do trade with. So she eventually started to work with some of the women who survived the bombing from her village and who had moved into Vientiane, and they were in sort of an outer-lying area, and they started with silk weaving. So this is Komali, and this is her husband, Nguyen. And they created Pong Tong Handicrafts. And she worked with, this is a village that she worked with, and is still there. And you can see the women working, they work underneath their homes to do the silk weaving. This is King, and she's in charge of the weavers now in their village. But Komali's vision was one day to have every morsel of the silk weaving and the process have people from Laos involved in every single aspect. So this is where the capacity building starts. That was her vision. She met up with villages when the doors opened to trade years later, and through the years she's worked with this is T. She won a scholarship to learn to do design, and she came back and she does all the designs for the women. That's what we're working on. That's a pattern of a scarf. So can you imagine if you do that whole pattern up, you give it to a group and say, would you like this? And they say, I like this, but could you move this over here? Can you imagine what it's like to undo that? That's a very complicated design. And this is some of the groups that we work with, the children. These are a group of women that I worked with that we met, and I actually got one of these scarves. We did carry it in the store for a little while. Just this part alone is what these women were working on, and this part alone was allowing them to send their kids to school. So Komali's vision was that one day everything would be made in Laos. So they now have a farm, a mulberry farm so they employ farmers in the area, and it's actually up near where she used to live, because it's very difficult to get work up there. So she has the mulberry farms, she has with the trees, and the leaves from the trees go to feed the silkworms, and the silkworms they teach people within the community to grow their own silkworm farms, and then they buy the silk back from them. This is the farms. They also, as an offshoot of the farms, they do more than just the mulberry trees, so they have enough to feed the area as well. This is them cutting up the mulberry trees to feed the silkworms. This is the there's 150 about in that boiled up, and then out of that comes 3 strands, and then they're twisted together to make 1 strand of silk. Nothing goes to waste. Everything is that doesn't make it as far as using it for silk. They clean it all and they use it for stuffing to fill blankets. For the environmental aspect of it is very important. They use natural dyes, so they have to make sure that all the runoff is completely done, because these are the people that are going to be farming in this area too. So they try to use natural dyes, and they buy the natural dyes from the Hmong people who are in the mountains, who are very isolated. They're also in the mountains. There's a large problem with slash and burn farming. So on top of everything else, she's also, actually I should stop here. This part here is they use the mulberry leaves to make tea, which I have over there. So that's another offshoot, another job creation through this program. What they do with the Hmong people is they buy the raw materials for the natural dyes, and then once they have the dyes, they're able to use them in the silkworm farming. But they also bring people from the different villages in the Hmong community down to their area in the farm. There's a big building, and at the very top of the building they teach them how to do sustainable farming, tiered farming. So instead of slash and burn, they learn how to use the same tract of land over and over again. So this has really nothing to do necessarily with the job creation, and yet it does have to do with their environment and capacity building and helping build healthy communities. So a lot of these Hmong people, they don't read, so they kind of teach them through pictograms. They've also got in contact with teaching them how to that's a slash and burn, just to show you what it looks like. And this is what the pictogram, a piece of the pictogram, goes all the way around. And they teach them how to do graded farming. Good for them, good for the environment. They also taught them how to have clean water supplies. So they were given a grant through I'm not sure if it was the World Bank or not, or World Vision. I can't really remember how it was. I think it was the World Bank. And it's very simplistic. It's cement, and there's like 3 levels, kind of like the fish tank, the 3 levels that it goes through. But they also had to teach them that you have to put a clean bucket underneath once the water comes out. So the difference, like when we went up there and met with some of these Hmong people, one of the things that they said is the difference in the change in the fact that their children were now surviving beyond infancy. Because now it's grown. She's not just doing silkworm farming. She's also including groups like Mr. Pet, and he makes stables and crashes, and that's over there at Mr. Pet's stable and crash and bird houses. Oh, I forgot to bring these today, but these are kata balls. It's actually a game, but we use them for making Christmas ornaments. This is the game. It's sort of a combination of volleyball, but you can't use your hands, you can only use your feet. It's incredible to watch. You see the guy there? That's a spike. You get 3 times. Wood carving shop. She's included a wood carving shop in the cooperative as well. Basket making. This is a group of basket weavers. They were all called Grandma. Grandma 1, Grandma 2. Everyone called them Grandma 1, Grandma 2. And this is Komali. She was actually nominated for Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. So does this make a difference? Absolutely, because there is so many very hardworking people in these countries that are doing amazing work for their communities.
So in the end, I'm finished now. I guess what I want to bring us back to, David, is Samuel. So as Christians have set great examples by the purchase of fair trade. Fair trade is not about charity versus justice. Charity is important to help those in immediate crisis. That's what relief workers do when they are working in countries in crisis. But it's justice through trade that will move people and their countries forward with long-term sustainability. People are treated with dignity and respect and live a life of quality. We are leaders by reaching out to them and not down to them, our fellow man, following the path of Christ. So is Christianity complicated? Maybe it's just the simplicity of being a Christian and loving your neighbor.
Amen.
So,
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
Thank you. Sunday school will be joining us in a minute. I just want to say one thing. You said that I'll say